Bro, you give somebody a 5-year, $100 million contract, right? What is it really? It's 5 years for 60. You're getting taxed. Do the math. That's 12 a year, that you have to spend, use, save, invest, flaunt, like whatever, however, just being real. I'm gonna buy a car, I'm gonna give my mama a house, I'm gonna do, everything costs money. You start breaking down the numbers, it's like, that's a 5-year span of where you're getting 8 million. Can you make that last forever?
All right, y'all. I wanted to talk real quick about financial literacy. Odell Beckham had a conversation, and he was talking about the struggles of a $100 million contract and how the money doesn't last forever. I thought this was interesting because I think this is something that people need to see, and I think it needs to be understood on how things work. It brings up the conversation of financial literacy and how important it is. A lot of us growing up were not privy to financial literacy. Financial literacy is a very broad thing, how to save money, type of expenses, especially in the Black community, and I feel like it's something that a lot of us have not been taught, and I think Odell Beckham talks about it right here, and it gives a pretty good insight on how these numbers, as high as the number is at 100 million, that shit could mean nothing if you don't have financial literacy. Now, let's check this out real quick.
If I didn't have $1 in my account right here today as we speak, I'm gonna be straight for the rest of my life. No question, right? I don't think everybody is in that. And when you've sacrificed your whole life to get here, and you're like, yeah, I played 10 years in the league. And I always explain this to people, like, bro, you give somebody a 5-year, $100 million contract, right? What is it really? It's 5 years for 60. You're getting taxed. Do the math. That's 12 a year, that you have to spend, use, save, invest, flaunt, like whatever, however, just being real. I'm gonna buy a car, I'm gonna give my mama a house, I'm gonna do, everything costs money. So if you're spending $4 million a year, that's really 40 million over 5 years, 8 a year, And now you start breaking down the numbers, it's like, that's a 5-year span of where you're getting 8 million. Can you make that last forever? And you always hear the people who ain't us and ain't been in the position like, oh, well, that would last a lifetime.
So he said a lot in there, and I think this is very important to look at. I think this is very important to discuss. I think we all look at athletes, entertainers, especially the entertainers and athletes and, celebrities that go broke or, have money problems and have issues. Always public, right? It's always in the public eye for us to see because of the fact that they're celebrities, right? Their whole life is given to the public. So when they have these hard times, we see them. And I think a lot of people look at it and their first thought is,
wouldn't let that shit happen to me though.
If I had that money, it wouldn't happen to me. And I think that's what Odell is kind of hinting at here when he's speaking on it, because we look at a big number like 100 million. We see somebody with $100 million contract, 5 years. In those 5 years, every year you got $20 million. Some people have this mindset that when you make $20 million, you make $20 million. The tax factor is there. You're gonna get taxed the fuck up with that. And then you're gonna have your expenses. And then you have these athletes sometimes, and you have celebrities that, get to this place and they have this mindset of take care of everybody. And look, I'm not blaming anybody for that. I'm not saying anybody is wrong for that, but that's where financial literacy comes into play. There's some things that you just have to accept that you cannot do at the present moment. Now, the issue is that a lot of, like Odell Beckham said, be in the league for this amount of years, you fought so hard to get there. We're talking about kids who came from nothing, right? There's a lot of kids who came from nothing. They came from the struggle. Their only dream was to become this athlete or become this entertainer or become this actor and take their people out of the struggle, right? And also get yourself out of the struggle, right? So when they make that money, now you're talking about somebody who came from never having to all of a sudden having. And I think people often ignore how scary that can be. Like, just imagine you go from making maybe 20-something thousand dollars a year or 30-something thousand. Hell, even if you're making 50,000, during your come up, and if you're making way more than that, then you're definitely fortunate. But imagine making that or not making anything at all to all of a sudden having millions of dollars and feeling like you can do anything you want to do. And people ignore the things that comes with that. Number one, you're a celebrity now. You're an athlete. You're entertainer. You can't live anywhere. You can't just live modest, but you can't just live anywhere. So your home is going to cost something for you to have peace of mind because you're a recognizable face. People see you. They know you. You can't just live anywhere. And that costs money. And security costs money. And, the lifestyle just changes. So when the lifestyle changes, some people don't take that into account. That gets expensive. And I think it all boils down, again, to financial literacy and you understanding that I got $20 million each year. Each year I get $20 million. Each year that is getting taxed. I have to find a modest place and I have to curb my lifestyle. People can say what they want about, nah, if it was me, I would have been good. You know, I would have spent that the right way. Somebody with $100 million and a lifestyle of somebody who has $100 million can easily match somebody who's making $50,000 and has a lifestyle of somebody who has $50,000. Just think about somebody who has $50,000 a year, but is buying things that they probably shouldn't buy. Maybe you shouldn't buy that new MacBook. Maybe you shouldn't buy that new Apple Watch. Maybe that's not the smartest financial decision to make when you have maybe debt or you have, other expenses that could set you back. That's where it all boils down, because the person in that bracket is no different from the person making $100 million who maybe shouldn't have bought that mansion. Maybe shouldn't have bought that Rolls Royce because it doesn't fit your life, your expenses. So in a lot of ways, we're the same people just playing with different numbers. I think that's what needs to be understood when we look at what Odell is saying. And I agree, $100 million doesn't last forever, especially if that $100 million is all you gonna make. Now, if you're an athlete making $20 million a year and you have endorsements and you have other things that bring in income, now we're talking about a whole different story. But still, not having the awareness to spend that money responsibly can still hurt you at the end of the day, because people lose endorsements, people get injured, some contracts are not guaranteed, anything can happen. You can have this shit today and it could be gone tomorrow. And I think when you spend like it can never be gone, that's where you fuck things up. So I just thought that was an interesting conversation, something interesting to see. I think it's interesting to talk about. I think when people get money, they have this moment where they feel like they gotta spend. They said getting paid more in a year than most Americans earn in total over the course of their working lives and still making excuses for blowing it is wild. And I think that's an important point. And the key word here is blowing it, and that's financial irresponsibility. I mean, nobody's making excuses for anybody that's out here irresponsibly blowing $100 million, or $20 million a year for 5 years. If you're blowing through that money, and you're doing things that are irresponsible, there is no excuse for that. But I think my point is, I'm just saying that there's an overall problem here. And the overall problem here is that there are people that lack financial literacy. It says struggles and $100 million in the same sense is extremely hilarious. And see, this is what I mean. Sometimes it's hard for people to see that correlation between somebody who doesn't make $100 million and somebody who does. The big factor here is the lifestyle. The lifestyle is just different, and the lifestyle is more expensive. That mansion you buy, that big ass mansion, you might have the money to buy that $1 million mansion right now, but do you got the money to keep up with those expenses and the lifestyle that you just acquired? Somebody paying $250 on a light bill and making regular modest living in a regular house, that $250 is now in the thousands for that mansion. That mansion probably costs you about $2,000, $4,000 just to power, just to run. That's being nice on the numbers. So just think about those things. Those are the things that make the difference. In a sense, you're living just like somebody who's making $50K a year. Y'all spending the money on expenses in the same rate, The pressure of being the provider for your whole circle steals more money than the lifestyle ever does. Wow, that's a good point, man. That's definitely a good point, man. There's also people who become providers for their whole crew, man. And I think that's a big mistake too. But again, that all boils down to financial literacy. You should know better than to allow that to happen. So this is where financial literacy comes in, which unfortunately many folks don't have, because why would you be spending $4 million a year? Getting your mama a house is okay, but hey, don't get her a $1.5 million house that will cost $500K to maintain yearly. Nothing but facts. Live modestly and invest wisely. That's big facts right there. The people who don't go out buying a house that costs $30 million or buying over 7 to 8 cars which cost over $1 million a piece. I mean, players have to realize that they're not going to play forever. Think about life after sports. Live below your wants and you should be all right. And I 100% agree with that. And I think that's the whole basis of my point here. You should always live in a surplus, right? You should live to where you're gaining and not constantly losing. Because at some point, if one of those pieces goes away and you're not making the money that you're making before, you're going to hurt. Said if everyone around you is broke, then even after making $100 million, you will be broke too. $100 million not enough. Let me take a swing at it. $100 million should feed generations. Financial literacy is so important. Shout out to Jew Almighty, man. That definitely a fact. Someone should organize a canned food drive for Odell. The poor guy only made $12 million a year. And that's the other side of it, man. It's gonna be hard to get people to feel bad for you or get people to feel feel like, you know, it's gonna be hard to get people to feel bad for you because people are not going to understand you and this lifestyle, because people are always gonna look at it as if you have this amount of money, you should be living a certain way that matches that money but doesn't overspend, you know? So a lot of people always feel like, you know, I could take that 100 mil and I could flip it and make it this and make it that. But remember, that's the way a lot of people have lost money as well. Taking money and thinking that they're smart enough to flip it to this and to flip it to that without ever having any education on how to actually do it in a way that's not only safe but effective. You know, this 50-50 thing, you know, I could put it in this and there's a 50% chance that I make it, but 50% that I won't. It's not a smart thing to do with $100 million. So, you know, people can say that they would do this and they would do that, but at the end of the day, it's always just talk. And while some people maybe can do it, there's a lot of people who just say it. And I think it's easy to just say, you know, that you can do something without being put in that position and having the responsibility of doing that. But y'all let me know how y'all feel about that, man. Let me know what y'all think. I know it's gonna be hard for a lot of people to feel bad for Odell. I mean, I don't feel bad for the man. I just think that financial literacy is important. And I think your lifestyle plays a huge factor in how this applies. But let me know in the comment section what you think about it. It's your boy Goods. Big Zoe, let's go.
Fun to do bad things.
Take off the short nail, take off the dope, take off the broken bag. Take all that good and that bullshit off, and what do you have?